This is another Frank Collab.
A 6-month-old baby needs more iron than an adult male, and we think about that tiny little portion that they have and what you would be eating. 11 milligrams of iron is what they need, is equivalent to 5 pieces of steak.
I remember back in the day there was a thing called false advertising, and you would get in a lot of trouble and find a lot of money for it. Is that not a thing anymore?
Food safety standards Australia and New Zealand need to raise the bar in terms of what can go into food products and how it's marketed, because it's very confusing for parents to, or anybody to go into a supermarket and make a decision around what's healthy and what's not.
My biggest thing for anxiety around food for my kids is lunch boxes, because whatever I put in it, it seems to always come back at the end of the day.
I couldn't find anything that wasn't full of sugar or seed oils as well, and these are going into our kids' lunch boxes every day. And all respect to anybody that's vegan, whether it's religious or cultural or just a choice, but it is a high dietary requirement to get.
From being a nurse, working with people in palliative care and everything, and then you have all this knowledge and then you're becoming the patient.
I said to my husband, I just don't feel like I'm really good at the moment. He goes, yeah, I think you need to go to the doctor. And I kept on just like putting it to the side, and I should have known.
Welcome back to Stand Up Again with Sophie and Nick Ratto.
Today's guest is a clinical nutritionist who specializes in women's and infants' nutrition. She shares with us today her unique and life-changing stage 4 diagnosis, which saw her go from practitioner to patient.
Yeah, today's guest is Gina Urlich.
Welcome, Gina, to the show, Stand Up Again. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Now, for those who know you, they know that you're a clinical nutritionist. They've seen your amazing work founding Odi Nutrition for infant and your incredible work with women's health as well. So from all those perceived highs we see from the outside looking in, just tell us a little bit about your early days, early years in life, and what shaped you to become the Gina sat before us today.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in New Zealand, so Kiwi born and bred, and then moved over to Australia when I was 13 and spent about 10 years in Perth and then 8 years in Brisbane. Straight from school went in straight into nursing and did some community nursing, palliative care, and then when I moved to Brisbane, I worked in the Mater Mothers Hospital in South Brisbane, and it was a beautiful new hospital. And I kind of bounced between a gynae oncology ward and a maternity ward. So a bit of a mix, but a beautiful hospital. And it was probably during that time that I felt a real calling for preventative medicine, and I saw lots that we could do in terms of supporting health from the nutritional and kind of preventative space rather than at the end stage that I was seeing in the hospital.
So what made you want to go into that like straight away? Was it like a calling to go into nursing? Was it just
sometimes I see nurses, there's a family history of nurses, like, oh, my mum was a nurse or my grandmother. Was there anything like that in your background?
Yeah, we have a family of nurses. But I think even as a little girl, I was always like this, like nurturing. I just felt it was just something that I really wanted to do. And so it just felt like a good fit.
Amazing.
Yeah. And getting to see firsthand the medical system, how people coming in at the kind of the worst side of health where they're really needing intervention and Western medicine, you then saw that as an opportunity to go, right, well, let's get to the root cause and what's causing this in the first place. Is that where it led you to nutrition?
Yeah. I was having conversations with women in the gynae oncology ward, and they were telling me the symptoms that they had experienced for years, and they said they wish they knew that that was their body talking to them from these symptoms. It could have been decades before getting a diagnosis, and that all these things that we experience as now normal or like they're just common but not normal. And I was like, oh man, I just really feel like we need to put this education out there for everybody, but women in particular that were just experiencing all these kind of gynecological issues that they were just thinking was normal because their mum had it or their friend had it, and it was actually a real symptom from the body.
Because I guess if you sometimes think it's like, oh, it's just age, or it's just that's what you get to a certain age and that's what's happening. But when you're seeing it and you're seeing different people at different ages having similar things or different things, that must have been quite an eye-opening thing for you. Do you remember like when the penny dropped for you that there's something more to this, or that you have to go back, right back to the source?
Yeah, I actually remember there was a woman with gestational diabetes and the food trolley was outside and it was an isolation room. So I was like, I'll take her tray in for her.
Yeah.
And then I looked at the tray and it was a piece of white bread. It was jelly and it was just a really poor nutrient kind of meal. And I know that hospital systems have lots of layers to getting food onto a tray, but I just looked at that and I thought, wow, we could do so much better serving a woman with gestational diabetes, a whole heap of chemicals on a plate, really. And so I just really felt that I wanted to learn more and educate and start right from the very start.
Was that quite hard to do that? Because obviously you have to do a job and you're being paid to do that, and that's the system as well. How did you mentally fight yourself conflict-wise? Like, I don't want to be a problem or buck the trend or not be grateful for my job, but equally, I don't know, how did was there a mental anguish with that, or did you just go, no, I'm gonna go straight into this?
Yeah, that was probably the time that I was like, I'm gonna go and study and do a degree in nutrition. And I was a single mum at the time, and I was thinking, wow, how do I do this? I was dropping my son off at daycare really early in the morning to do a shift, and then I would study at night, and so it was a lot, but I was incredibly passionate about it and just a sponge learning all this new stuff, and it was quite empowering to then be able to share that with other people.
So already having a degree in nursing and now a new degree in not just nutrition, where you can do weekend courses and learning about delicious recipes that are good for this and that, but this is the evidence science-based backed nutrition. Is that what clinical nutrition is?
Yeah, it's a Bachelor of Health Science and Nutritional Medicine. And it's quite different. There's lots of nutritionists that can do a weekend course or something. But it was a bachelor degree. So it was very science-based.
Can I talk to that time when you were going through that and you made that decision and you were a single parent at the time? What was your day like, and where did you fit it in?
Yeah, did you carry on nursing at the same time? It
was quite convenient that I could do short shifts. So I would drop my son off at childcare at 7, or my shift would start at 7, so it was 6:30. I had to find accommodation or my house close enough to the hospital so I could get him to childcare and then get to a 7 o'clock shift, and then I would do that, and then I'd go straight from there to uni and then pick him up on my way home and then do the bedtime routine and spend time with him, and then it would be back into my books at night. And so
how long was that for?
A lot. 4 years. Yeah. So
Gina.
It was a lot. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is such a commitment, and the best way to do it properly, right? So as we said, these pamphlet courses and stuff, this is, if you're going to do it, this is the way to get that thorough, deep knowledge that is of nutrition. And so as you're learning about this and you have a young child yourself, are you kind of fascinated by the world of food and then changing decisions and different sort of behaviors in your own sort of cooking style for your own child at that point? Are you applying what you're learning as you go?
Yeah, it was probably a lot of passion project for me, learning this, because I thought, it was so interesting for me to learn for my own health, for my family. And then we had student clinics where we'd bring people in and we'd do our consulting, and it was just I just loved it. I just thought it was such a fun job. And,
I find it really interesting when you are naturally interested in a topic, it seems to land and you can learn it much easier than if it's something that feels really forced on you or just a totally jarring subject. But for me, it was like that with yoga. And yoga, there's a lot of anatomy and physiology involved. And I always found it quite interesting to learn it because I was like, well, I have this body. I understand how my arms move and legs move, etc. So it felt more natural to learn. And so for you, had food always been something you were kind of interested in, spending time in the kitchen, preparing food and growing food? I don't know if that's now more later in life you've been doing that. Have you always been around food?
Yeah, I think I've got a family of foodies as well. I just my memories of my grandma in the kitchen. She'd whip up anything from scratch. There's no recipe. It was just throwing things in and it would be beautiful. And Mum's the same. She just makes the most beautiful food and can get flavour out of anything without ever having to add a packet. And I just think back at school, I always had a great lunchbox. We had a homemade muesli bar, or Mum made these big salad rolls and things like that. So it was always a big focus of having healthy food, which I think, just carried on.
When did you start thinking, I'm kind of onto something here and this is maybe worse than I thought, in terms of what we're being served in the supermarkets and to our children and family to what we should be eating. Do you kind of remember that?
Yeah, it's probably a bit of, so I spent 10 years working in my own clinical practice once I graduated.
Right.
And so seeing people one-on-one is really great because you see just the pain points that's happening in everyone's lives, and there's common threads. It's time is always like, how do I have the time to do all this and make all this stuff from scratch? But it's then just educating what things are in a packet as well, because sometimes the front of the pack looks incredibly healthy,
right.
and we just pick it up off the shelf and run with that. But until you flip it over and actually see the ingredients, it could be anything. And I think even my own journey of having 4 children now myself is just, I've kind of grown with my clients. And so I've learned along the way. And what I fed my son back 19 years ago is very different to what I know now. And so I think we always just evolve with what we know as well.
I feel like our oldest is now 11. And just from, learning about your work, and especially with Odi, your business, which is this incredible kind of new healthy product for infants. And I want to just go back 11 years and redo it all over again. And I feel like I'll have such regret there. But I was listening to some really fascinating facts that you were sharing on a webinar online. And can you just talk to us about the importance of some really key nutrients for babies, infants, like around their 6-month mark, what they're really needing? Some really surprising facts, I thought.
Yeah, there's actually been a new Australian study that's just come out, and over 50% of children are deficient in iron. And iron's involved in just about every process of the body, from immunity to brain function to just every kind of process in the body is relying on iron. And a 6-month-old baby needs more iron than an adult male. And we think about that tiny little portion that they have and what you would be eating. And 11 milligrams of iron is what they need, is equivalent to 5 pieces of steak. And so getting that into a baby is just impossible, really. And so we've spent a lot of time in product development really getting nutrients into baby food that's not synthetic or fortified, so from real food. And it kind of goes back generations and what our grandmothers and their grandmothers were feeding babies, and it's using the whole animal. And so things like our bone broths, our organ meats, all these meat products is where we have heme iron, and that's the most bioavailable. So it's kind of going all the way back to traditional foods and then bringing it into a modern form.
Yeah, I really love that. It's like feeding like our ancestors used to eat. And it's not like the most extreme like paleo or caveman or like ice age or fasting. It's like actually using the whole animal, as you say, sort of the things that we've fallen out of practice of. And I think bone broths is really interesting because I have a really great friend and mentor who studies traditional Chinese medicine, and just bone broths was just all she talked to me about as we were actually having our babies. Like I was pregnant with both kids, and that was one thing I really took from her was the bone broth. So what is it about bone broths that is so good for us?
Bone broth is really gentle on the digestive system. So little babies have a really delicate digestive system. And if we were to throw like a rice cereal on there and have some synthetic iron and some sunflower oil, which is what these cereals are made of, then it causes lots of inflammation. And it's really hard for them to digest. Bone broth's just really gentle on the digestive system, and it helps close the gap junctions in their tummy. So they're born with gap junctions so that all the immunoglobulins from breast milk can pass freely into the bloodstream. And as they start solids, that closes, and we want it to be closed so that you don't get allergies from food. If it's open, then we see things like eczema and allergies flaring up when babies are starting solids. So bone broth's really great at closing the gap junctions in the stomach, but it's also just really great amino acids that are the building blocks of protein as well. That's so easy for a baby to digest. It's great for everybody, but it's particularly good for babies.
That's fascinating. So there's genuine timings as well to like go from solids or to get onto solids. Like what is those timings? And also with those timings, and you're saying that when they're open, the allergies come through. Like how does that happen? Is it the eating of those foods that cause the allergies, or is it from other things that are going on? I know there's a couple of big questions there, but
no, they're all interrelated. So
Right.
the timing is crucial for preventing allergies.
Right.
So timing wise, you want to make sure that they can sit up unassisted. They've lost this tongue thrust reflex. So if you were to put a bit of puree into a baby's mouth and they'd push it back out, you may remember that
Yeah.
with babies,
Yeah.
and you kind of scoop it up and put it back in. They're not quite ready. So we kind of want to wait for that tongue thrust reflex. And that's a natural mechanism that we're born with to stop us from choking on food. And then they'll show interest in food as well. And so that's probably the first thing that we'll see, and you kind of feel a bit mean eating in front of them. But once they can really sit up strong unassisted is when you could start solids. But if we were starting too soon, that's when those gap junctions or the digestive system isn't quite developed enough to digest food. And that's when we start seeing things like the allergies pop up. So really waiting till they're showing developmental signs is crucial.
I just had a flashback actually of you eating a banana, and I think Bo, our eldest, was sitting on your knee and he just launched into eating a banana. And I guess that's the sign when they're really ready. They literally take it off your plate. Yeah, I do remember that. I feel like it's a minefield, like just from myself, like reflecting back on, new mum, trying to figure it out. And I'm learning new things, like the latest stuff that's out in the baby journal and everything. But then I'm also being told kind of unsolicited advice from my, my mum or, her mum. It's just like, how to help them sleep.
Super Gold Tuesday or whatever. Just
just
a random
well-meaning, but it kind of interrupts that well-meaning of, okay, well, you want to get them sleeping. Well, this will help them sleep and put this in the milk or whatever. And it's like, it's a challenge sometimes, new information versus old things your mum or parents have done before. And so it was a bit of a journey, I think, for us.
And adding on to that is you're tired. You're knackered.
Yeah. And if someone says this will make them sleep, I would take it. Let's do it.
You just go for that. So what would be your advice? And is someone going through that time or about to, or even more importantly, someone who is going into this time and just thinking like, how do I avoid the pitfalls?
Yeah, I think parents are quite intuitive, and there's lots of noise, and now more than ever, there's so much noise.
Yeah.
So I think we can be quite intuitive as parents and what our babies need, and babies are also very intuitive as well. So really follow your baby's lead. They can tell you when they're wanting something or when they've had enough. They start getting irritable or pushing food away. So I think really just knowing what you've got within yourself as well when there's a lot of outside noise. I
want to ask as well, so you've founded Odi, and this is a new business for you when you're founding it, and it's there to solve a problem, which is often why businesses are created. And the problem, I feel, is quite a few. So it's time poor mums, it's trying to get lots of nutrient dense food into infants quite a young age, and with the most pickiest eaters that you can imagine. So the toughest critics, really. So you're trying to problem solve all these things and be cost effective as well in a competitive market. So that's the business model. And then you're going, how do I solve all these problems at once? So that's an amazing feat to get going and off the ground and to be so successful in. So well done on that. And then how to launch it in the supermarkets and all the places that stock your product. And can you tell us about your journey into building your business?
Yeah, it's been quite a journey. I went in very naive thinking, why this can't be that hard. Why hasn't anyone made a healthy baby food? After the birth of my fourth baby, Billy, I went down to...
Oh, we have a Billy.
Oh, there you go. Great name. Yes. I went down to the Plunket nurse and I walked away with the feeding guide that you get, and it felt like an advertising piece for another baby food company, and it was just, I was like, oh man, this is what people are being given. And so I went home. Billy was an amazing sleeper. So she would go to bed and she would just sleep all day. And so I just got a bit bored and wrote a little ebook on starting solids and put it up on my website. And I was just so surprised with how many people were purchasing it. And I was like, oh, wow, this is incredible. People are really interested for information and education outside of that mainstream. But then they were coming to me with, like, I'm going back to work, my baby's 6 months, she's ready to start solids. What's a product that I can use? Or is there a bone broth out there on the market that doesn't contain additives and preservatives? And so I went down to the supermarket and I started flipping over all these packets, and I was just like, wow, there's actually no nutrients in the baby foods, and there was nothing that I could recommend. And so I was like, right. I sat at the kitchen table and I started mixing up some purees, and I was making my own little baby cereal with freeze-dried organ blends and bone broths and things like that. So I pitched it at like an innovation event in Hawke's Bay, and we won that. And then that was kind of, it just all took off from there.
Wow. So that was like a little Dragon's Den type for Hawke's Bay. And then they went, okay, let's go for it.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And quite a superpower, because you're a mum of 4, so this is your 4th child.
You don't need a new business.
No.
You have a young baby yourself, and now here we go, a new venture. So that must have been busy.
Yeah, it was. And like I said, I was very naive to how much work was involved. And so, there's a lot of learning. There's still a lot of learning, but it's been well received. And I think we really needed to change the category. There's really poor regulations in place for the baby category. It blows my mind that we do have products on the shelf that contain 4 teaspoons of sugar and they're marketed as healthy.
Yeah.
And so I just felt as my next passion project that we actually have to do something about the health of our next generation, because what was sitting on the shelf was detrimental to the health of the next generation.
So this is something I'm curious about. So as I said, if I could go back 11 years and do things differently, I would. Now I can't do that. So now I'm looking at, our children, and, I did do pouches, particularly for our first, because I'm a young, naive mum trying to, figure things out. What can I do now, like, to catch up on those early days where maybe I didn't give those best? I did my best in some days, but there were definitely days those pouches were to hand, So what can I do now? Do you have any advice?
Yeah, and I think just to that point, we never want people to feel bad for what they've done in the past.
Yeah.
Like, we just do the best with what we know, and we evolve with that. And I was the same 19 years ago with my now big boy was a baby. I didn't have any idea about this either. So never do I want anyone to feel guilty for not doing enough, because we always do the best with what we have. But I think when we do learn and evolve, it's just getting nutrients from whole foods. And it's such a busy space in the nutrition world. And I think if we just really dial it back to whole foods as much as we can, is less packaging and preservatives and all the additives and things, is really where I see in clinical practice things going wrong. And so if we can really stick to whole foods as much as we can, try and make macronutrient balanced meals, so we've got a source of protein, fat and carbohydrates, and just keep it as simple as we can, because it's complex.
Yeah, it is complex. I'm kind of angry, furious, frustrated, where our whole lives, especially from when we're little, we get told of the experts, or we get told of, these people know more than you do, so trust this. So, for example, the star ratings that we have in our supermarkets, like, I've quite often thought, how can a Milo cereal be 4 stars and butter be 0.5 or whatever it is? And it's just counterintuitive, but I kind of get told this a lot, where you don't know as much as them, so just trust the process, or trust what you've been told.
Trust the label.
Trust the label is the better phrase. And I guess my question is to this, like, how did we get here, and what are the small steps to get out of this?
I think we got here because there are a lack of regulations in place.
Right.
I feel like food safety standards Australia and New Zealand need to raise the bar.
Yes.
In terms of what can go into food products and how it's marketed, because it's very confusing for parents or anybody to go into a supermarket and make a decision around what's healthy and what's not. And we call them health halos, so it looks like something's healthy when it's not. And
but can I just stop you there, Gina? So I remember back in the day there was a thing called false advertising, and you would get in a lot of trouble and find a lot of money for it. Is that not a thing anymore? Because it just feels like it's rampant, and it's all the buzzwords. Like, it was plant-based was the big one.
All
Proteins now. Protein was the big one now. Low carb. All of those ones. And all of a sudden, once the industry started catching on, all of a sudden now I think my yogurt back in the day was vegan. Now it's high protein. Then it was low carb. It's the same.
High fiber.
High fiber. It's the same thing, but they're just putting different buzzwords on there. it's kind of
maybe more responsibility with the marketing. Do you think
Is
who's
that
Yeah,
holding
I
the
feel
standard?
like
here?
just transparent marketing
Yeah.
is where it should be, because it's misleading and confusing.
Mm.
And that's probably the core problem. And then the regulations in place to have really high food standards for infants in particular, but then also children.
Yeah. And is that a government thing? Is that like, that's a government thing, right?
Yeah. And you mentioned the 5-star health rating. I agree. Like, it's a rigged food system, really. We're putting 4.5 stars on Nutrigrain, and butter's got 0.5 star.
Yeah.
That to me just is so backwards.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
And even some breads and things which are full of whatever, 3.5, 4 stars or whatever. And it's like, I don't even know, again, how is this truthful? How are we getting away with this? And I guess it's our old adage, if we don't stand for something, then we fall for everything. And I feel like we've fallen for everything. We've just let it slip. And so now working backwards, like, how do we start gaining control? Because I think all of us are feeling like we've lost control.
Yeah, I feel definitely. I don't know when it really started. I think it was when I started getting busier. I started my own business a few years ago, and I definitely feel like things felt faster and I felt busier, and you were away a lot, and I was just trying to really juggle. And I think maybe some habits fell into place in our house, and letting that go, or takeaway here. And like, I'm just trying to maybe fine tune our own household now, and maybe this could be helpful for anyone else. My biggest thing for anxiety around food for my kids is lunch boxes, because whatever I put in it, it seems to always come back at the end of the day. So what would be a quick swap that you could recommend, just for one or two different things?
Yeah, lunch boxes is part of our new launch as well.
Is
so
it?
we launched a heap of snacks. I should have brought some in for you guys.
Oh,
They're so
amazing.
yum. They're not just for kids, they're for
really?
the big people too.
Yeah.
We've got a brownie that's really good with a coffee.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Here we go.
So we did a range of lunchbox, like bars and snacks, because I couldn't find anything that wasn't full of sugar or seed oils as well. And these are going into our kids' lunchboxes every day, and the additives. And I just think it's a cumulative effect of all of these additives over time that we don't have any data on.
Yeah.
So they're having this core food every single day for years, and it's like we have some data on some of these additives and what that looks like in a single serve, but we need to look at the cumulative and the additives that go in all together. And we did a bit of a research poll, and the average New Zealand lunchbox contains over 30 additives. And so we think about that every single day into little bodies. That is quite a lot.
Yeah.
So
I have to be honest, I reckon there's a lot in mine, because I'm putting carrot sticks and apple, and I'll put, a banana, but it comes back, and the thing they will eat is the granola bar or the processed bread and the ham. I just think, I just feel like a tune-up is required. So I feel really inspired talking to you today, and I'm definitely going to try those yummy bars you said.
Yeah, I have your same pain points. So like, I send all this stuff to school with my kids as well, and the same things come back. And I think with kids, it's repetition and exposure. So if it's showing up in the lunchbox, it's on their dinner plate at night, they're going to become familiar with the food. Where I have worries is that it doesn't ever show up in the lunchbox or on the dinner plate, and we get to a certain period in their life and they don't know what a vegetable is, or they haven't developed a palate to like those kind of foods at all. So I think right from starting solids all the way through to lunchboxes and children is this consistency of showing up with whole foods in the plate and in the lunchbox, because they will favour something over a vegetable. It's just like natural, but it's just keeping them in exposure.
I got a couple of other questions about that. Yeah, what's some of the most extreme benefits that you've seen with people changing their diets to this more whole food approach?
Yeah, just even getting iron into children, you see huge changes in their energy and their immunity, and their brain development and things like that. And then even like you've mentioned with like ADHD, is removing the additives and preservatives out of the diet, and how that changes the child's life. It can be amazing.
And have you seen like, eczmas go away and all those kind of things? Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
I want to go to some simple for you, and I kind of like know half of it, but I'm also asking on behalf of our audience as well. Couple of things. So I want to talk to some negatives, and I want to then talk to some positives. So let's start with the positives first. So when you say getting iron into the kids, like, let's just pretend like I know nothing. Like, what what do we mean by that, and how is the best way to do that?
So we have a few different types of iron. We've got heme iron, which comes from animal products.
Right.
We've got non-heme iron, which comes from plant-based, like your vegetables and things like that.
Yeah.
And then we've got synthetic iron, which is like a fortified supplement, which can be in some like packaged foods and things.
Sure.
So heme iron from animal products is the most absorbable. So it could be your meats. It could be the organ, like we have organ blends, and we've got a meal booster and a smoothie booster. So you could put that in, and even with those, you can hit 30% of the RDI, the recommended daily intake, by adding something like that.
Wow.
So your heme iron, your animal products.
And when they say that's the best, that's because it's the most absorbable, yes.
Yeah. If you have your non-heme, your plant-based products, you need to times the recommended daily intake by 1.8. So you're almost doubling it if you're on a plant-based diet, which is incredibly hard to do.
It's hard.
Yeah.
I've tried it. I've been vegan. You went pretty well on it. I was the most tired I've ever been on it. It was hard for me. Yeah.
And all respect to anybody that's vegan, whether it's religious or cultural or just a choice, but it is a high dietary requirement to get that amount. Like for a baby, we think of 11 milligrams. That's nearly 20 in a baby. So it's a lot of iron to get in. But a combination of your heme iron, non-heme iron, and then if you're really struggling, you can supplement in a really good like iron biglycinate supplement that you could get from a naturopath or a nutritionist. I wouldn't recommend the like Ferrograd C's or anything like that. That's really hard to digest.
And it causes a lot of tummy pain and things.
So some of the things that we hear at the moment is seed oils. Like why is seed oil so bad?
So we have our like omega-3, omega-6 ratios, and they're really high in omega-6, which is our inflammatory kind of pathway. And they're just ultra processed. They go through stripping and deodorizing and heating, and it just makes them very inflammatory.
Right.
So I don't think we were ever designed to live this fast-paced life like we're all living.
Right.
Like it just seems ludicrous that we wake up so many people to a screen, and it's just the noise of the world, and then it's rushing around getting kids to school and work, and the amount of pressures on everybody is enormous. And I think that's probably one of the main things that's having impact on people's health. And
Interesting.
Probably one of the main things I saw in my clinical practice in women's health was the rushing. It's just this constant cortisol and adrenaline and this like wired and tired.
Yeah, I relate to all of those things you just said. Actually, I saw a recent post you did about a study on stress response between 3 different groups. Can you talk to that?
It's fascinating. So there were 3 different subjects in this study, and they were all getting news of a diagnosis. So one was getting good news that they didn't have the diagnosis. The second group got poor news that they had a terminal diagnosis, and then the third group were in the unknown category. They didn't know what was happening. And the stress in the good news was obviously good. They were off, they went. Then the second group was still a bit of stress, but they had a pathway forward and they knew what was coming, and they could make a plan around it.
Right.
The highest stress, the 6 times the amount of the bad news, was in the unknown, and it's the ambiguity of not knowing what's to come is what causes the stress. And for me it landed because I was in that space at the time, and I was like, oh, I can resonate with that so deeply. Can
you talk to us as well more on this health journey you've been through personally?
Yeah, absolutely. So probably 2 years, coming up 2 years ago, I was experiencing all of those symptoms that women were telling me they had in the gynae oncology ward.
Really?
And I was like, oh, this couldn't be me.
Right.
And would just go through another day, get the kids to school and rushing around doing the things.
What kind of symptoms? Do you mind me asking any that we can share?
Yeah. So I felt like a heaviness in my legs, like they were just felt like heavy and swollen at the end of the day. And I'd put the kids to bed and put my legs up the wall, and that was like one of my favorite yoga poses. Legs up the wall. But I was like really needing to do it. My legs were so heavy, and so that was the key one. And then this kind of urinary frequency and urgency, and that was probably the key one for me, because I know that's such a common symptom with ovarian cancer.
Oh, wow.
And I just didn't feel well. I said to my husband, I just don't feel like I'm really good at the moment. He goes, yeah, I think you need to go to the doctor. And I kept on just like putting it to the side, and I should have known. So I went to the doctor and I said that I've got this group of symptoms, and his face was a bit like, yeah, it sounds a bit serious. So booked me in for an ultrasound and some blood tests, and that was the following week. And I went to work at a market that weekend, and I got through the full day, and I said to Dylan, my husband, can you drop me off at emergency? I'm in so much pain, and my stomach was bloated, and I just knew deep down there was something not right. And I was taken straight in. They did a bedside ultrasound. The doctor's face was like, we're just going to move you to a private room. And I was like, right then and there, I know what that means. Yeah. And so, they said there's a mass in your ovary, and it's about 20 centimeters. It was quite big. It's like a grapefruit. Wow. And I just think, man, it took me to get a 20 centimeter ovary to get some help. Wow. But it can be quite a silent disease as well. And so they took out that ovary, and it was just before Christmas, so the timing of it was no good. Yeah. It was just like, the worst timing. But doctors have holidays too over Christmas, so there weren't many doctors around.
That's true.
I was like, how's the petrol station open, but there's no doctor here? Where are they all? So we had a bit of a wait in getting histology results, and they said it's really actually quite unusual. We're actually sending it down to Wellington, and so it was a really long wait, I think about 3 weeks. And New Year's Eve, Dylan and I went into and got the news that it was actually malignant ovary that they'd taken out. And so I was like, far out, this is New Year's Eve. And we just went back to the beach and had a huge cry, and didn't want to see anyone, and thought, how have I got to this stage? I feel like I practice and preach health, and it just felt like it came out of nowhere.
Yeah, I'm thinking practitioner to patient, and that must have been probably like a blessing and a curse at the same time, having all the knowledge that you have from the medical side, from being a nurse, working with people in palliative care and everything. And then you have all this knowledge, and then you're becoming the patient. How did that feel in that moment of recognizing I need help and I need to be receiving this help myself?
It was really hard, I think, because I had been on the other side of the bed, and now all of a sudden I was the patient. And that was probably what put me off for getting help for so long, because I thought, surely it's not me. I don't drink alcohol. I really prioritize what I eat, and I exercise, and I do all these things, and we've got no family history. So I never thought that would be the case. And it just goes to show it can happen to anybody. And for a long time I had this why me. And actually, when you look at the stats, it can really happen to anybody. So, we had probably a good 3 months after that diagnosis for them to come back and say it wasn't an ovarian tumour. It actually come from the gastrointestinal tract somewhere. And so they had to search for the primary, and the primary tumour was actually 0.3 centimetres. It's a tiny little thing like this in my stomach. That had travelled to an ovary. So
that was smaller than the secondary site. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
But it had travelled. And so is that the concern then? Does that make it stage 4? Is that what they consider that?
Yeah.
And so what was the process then to healing and getting well again?
Yeah, so I had a surgeon say to me, Gina, you just need to throw everything at this. It's not good. And I was like, well, you're speaking to the right person here. I'm type A. I'm going to do this, everything I know how to do. Yeah. So I had a great oncologist. He's up here in Auckland, and we had 2 rounds of chemo, and my body really didn't tolerate it. I kind of went into this cardiac kind of episode, and I had to stop chemo straight away. But it was enough chemo for me to lose my hair and to become really unwell from it, which was probably the biggest impact on my children. It was seeing me become really unwell and lose my hair. Yeah. And then I had a huge surgery. So it was a 12-hour surgery. They removed most of my stomach. They removed the other ovary. I lost my appendix and the omentum, and quite a lot of organs. It's amazing how the body can be so resilient and keep going after losing some key organs.
Yeah.
And they also did this, what's called HIPEC, and they put hot chemotherapy into the abdominal cavity and they rock you on the operating table for 90 minutes to kind of, because it had gone to the ovary, to kind of mop up any residual disease there. So a huge 12-hour surgery that I felt like I trained for it, like I was training for a marathon. I knew that I was going into that surgery. They said to me that the chances of coming out of the surgery was 1 in 20. And so I was like, right, I need this surgery to save my life, and I'm going to be as healthy as I can to go into it. So
you're training for a marathon surgery and really scary statistics there, but you're still a mum, you're still a business owner, you're still all these things. You said physical resilience, but your mental resilience at that time must have been out the door amazing. Like, what was that feeling going into surgery, saying goodbye to your kids as you were going into surgery? Like, how did that feel in that moment? Can you take us there, if you don't mind?
Yeah, and my surgery was up here in Auckland, so we left the kids at home and Dylan came up with me. But I actually remember lying in the hospital bed, getting ready to go into surgery, and there was probably about 15 people standing around the bed. And they were all just taking their notes and this is Gina, blah, 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 and going through all the medical history. And that's when it hit me and tears welled up in my eyes. And I made eye contact with my surgeon and she said, everyone needs to go. Like, they forgot that there was a human lying in front of them. And I just thought, man, I'm going into this huge surgery. They said to Dylan, don't expect a phone call till after 8 p.m. and it was going to be really long. So it was scary because I was like, am I going into this and not coming out again, or like what's going to happen to me? So what did
we were fighting for questions.
That's all right. Yeah, fighting for questions. So I kind of want to talk to that. Like, you get this news and you go through what you've gone through and they're saying to you, you need to slow down, you need to, not be everything for everybody. Do you do that? How do you do it? Is it hard for you to kind of just, okay, I need to throw everything at this, but also I need to relax? Like, how do you find that balance, and how did you, and are you still struggling with it?
I don't think you ever stop being a mum. And so that was quite hard, knowing that I was actually a stage where I was really unwell.
Yeah.
But the kids still need to eat, and lunchboxes need to be made, and washing needs to be done. And we had a great community come together and support us, but as a mum, there's still things that need to be done on the day, and even just being there for my kids and being able to pick them up from school and all those little things that are so important that feel mundane when you do it every day. But when you can't do it, it's like all I wanted to do was be at soccer on a Saturday morning or pick the kids up from school. So
I'm sort of thinking back to ambiguity, that uncertainty. You've gone through the surgery, you've had really, intense chemotherapy that didn't agree with you. So then what happens after? Is it an immediate, it's finished, it's done? Or do you live with this now and not know what happens next? Is that where you're at now with it, with your diagnosis, or are you clear?
So normally they do a chemo round, so 4 rounds of chemo, the surgery, and then another 4 rounds of chemo. But because I had the reaction to the chemo, I couldn't have it again. So then they trialed an immunotherapy with me. And I'd heard people say that this is just great, like it's this miracle drug. And I was like, great, give it to me.
Yeah.
And I had it, and I ended up in hospital for 3 weeks with just severe colitis. I was more unwell than I was with the surgery. Like I was just so sick. And every 2 weeks I was in hospital with like scar tissue adhesion. So because I've had such huge abdominal surgery, my bowel was sticking to the scar tissue and the pain was just incredible. So it kind of felt like every 2 weeks I was back in emergency and just being pumped full of drugs. And it'd go from like, Dylan even started to know, like, don't give her 20 milligrams of fentanyl, she needs 150. My tolerance was just getting so high to these drugs. And even ketamine, I had a huge reaction to ketamine and actually thought I was dying. I could feel myself moving away from my own body thought, holy heck, this is it. I'm experiencing what death is. And I could see everyone working around me and putting cannulas in my arms, and I was like above my body and thinking, I can't believe I'm experiencing this. And then I came straight back down and I was like, whoa, don't take me back there.
Yeah.
So like, it wasn't the end of it after the surgery. It was probably a year of recovery and reactions and just getting my life back again. So I definitely had to step away from the business. I was not in any place to be working like I was. And yeah, we had, my family are all in Australia, so they took turns tag teaming it, coming over and helping with the kids and things like that. But
do you lose trust with all of this? Because you, as you say, like you know what you have to do to be healthy in nutrition. You know what you have to do to be healthy, to rest and relax. We know these things, and 80, 90, 95% of the time we're doing those things, and then all of these things are happening, and then you're having to let go of everything.
Yeah, you must have so many learnings from Western medicine and the alternatives and trying to make sense of it all.
Yeah, and I partly think maybe that's why I didn't agree. My body didn't accept the chemotherapy because I wasn't 100% there with it. I was like, how am I poisoning my body? But I just thought I had to do it. But yeah, I did lose trust for a while there, because even like when I was going back into the emergency every 2 weeks and I was just being pumped full of drugs, and I was like, what am I doing to stop this? Like, I can't just be here being pumped full of drugs. Like, how are we stopping me from getting here?
Where's the preventative
And
side?
so then I did my own research and I went on a low FODMAP diet and I never had one again.
What's a low FODMAP diet?
So FODMAPs are like things that ferment in your stomach. So fructooligosaccharides, and so there's certain type of foods that
is that
are high.
candida? No, that's not candida.
A bit different.
No,
some things like fruit would really set me off, and it would make my stomach swell up, and then I would end up with this bowel obstruction and scar tissue adhesions. And so it actually was my own knowledge of going on a low FODMAP diet that completely stopped me going back to emergency. And
interesting.
like I say this to my oncologist, I'm like, I haven't been back in since, and it was just a change in my diet. And even living without a stomach, I don't have to rely on synthetic fortified foods like they recommend. I have been able to maintain iron levels and my B12 and everything like that through my diet. And I think, there is this real balance between Western and kind of nutritional, natural, holistic medicine as well. And I really wish they could coexist, because both of them can work together. And I feel like I was in the middle of it, and I was really trying to make them speak to each other, and I was just quite shut down by the Western approach when I would want to use something holistic like a hyperbaric chamber or building up my gut health, because we know 70% of the immune system resides in the gut. I'm like, surely if we're trying to fight cancer here and we need a really strong, robust immune system, why aren't we working on my gut health? Or like, there's just so many things that didn't make sense to me. And so I think Western medicine and kind of holistic medicine can work really well together, and they can coexist.
You can have what you're doing at the minute, which is, a convenient pouch formed, convenient, easygoing food, but that has got the things that we need. Like, so they can both exist. And I think that's what your journey and your story, if anyone could tell that story and to be the communicator, it's you, because you've literally lived through it. You've even been to the other side and come back to go, actually, you know what, we should do things a little bit different here, because
it's interesting, isn't it? It's almost so unfair, but you're the perfect voice to be able to learn and grow your knowledge on this from your experience to share this again with others. I feel, the feeling of why me, and then what is this here to teach me? They kind of coexist here too for you, I feel, from looking in.
Sometimes it's just surrendering to the moment. And it is,
surrendering.
Absolutely. I think if anybody listening to this, if they are going through their own health journey, it's really advocating for yourself. And I think, I don't know how many times I've had to advocate for myself, and I'm kind of the personality that doesn't like to ruffle feathers or be a nuisance to anyone, where my husband would be like, come on, speak up for yourself. But what I've learned through this is that in this healthcare system, you have to advocate for yourself, because if you don't, you can get lost in it. You really need to push, and you need to push for answers. You need to push for treatments. You need to just ask for the best possible care, because you can get lost in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, since your health journey's begun into now, today, what are you saying yes to more now since your journey? Are you like, yes, we're going to go on holiday. Yes, we're going to take more time off. Are you changed for the better for some things with your family?
Yeah, for sure. I think I definitely feel like staring at my own mortality has made me really look at the present moment, because I think we live in a world that's uncertain, and that's for everybody. And I think that's just highlighted it for me even more, that the world is uncertain. We don't know what's happening tomorrow or in the next hour. And so the present moment is actually so precious, and it's made me more and more present when I'm at home with my children, when I'm in my work, whatever I'm doing, I'm at that place.
What do you do to catch yourself if you do feel like you've slipped or your mental health needs a little bit of a boost? What do you do personally to help yourself through some stickier moments of the day?
I'm big in affirmations. I think we grew up with mum having like Louise Hay stickers around the house and things. So I'm big on affirmations. But for me, walking to the redwoods is kind of like my place. We've got these beautiful redwoods in Hawke's Bay, and just walking in there, being in nature. I often walk barefoot. People probably thinking that girl can't afford shoes. Or But yeah, I think it's just connecting with nature and people, and really positive self-talk for me is really important. I fully believe that the road in is the road out. And so whatever led me to get to that diagnosis is the road out. And for me, it's really unpacking and understanding it was stress. I was it was my nervous system.
Really?
I was hitting the ground running every day, and that's not good for anybody. And I almost thought that I was immune to getting anything because I was this healthy nutritionist that did all the right things. But there's all these pillars to our health, and if we're not got a well-balanced, supported nervous system, then
it doesn't matter what you're
eating. It's the
eating.
foundation of everything.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's so fascinating. It's kind of almost like being a functioning alcoholic, right? Just because you're functioning on it doesn't mean that this is great.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow.
And I feel like, I think I've heard you say before, busyness is now a badge of honor for so much of our culture because of this modern day life. But we need to break that stigma. We need to go, I reward you and I absolutely celebrate you slowing down and taking, the day off or the whatever it is you need to do. Because and I think from a yogic perspective, like we often think, a yoga class will fix it or a nice warm bath will fix it, but it doesn't. It's, as you say, it's a journey in and it's a journey out. It's a road out of burnout or resetting the mindset to not want to or feel you have to be busy all the time. And are you finding things are more in balance for you now since this experience?
Yeah. We've built a great team with Odi, so it's really enjoyable work, and everyone's got their strengths in their different departments, so it's great to be able to share the workload. Previously, I was running it on my own, and that's no good for anybody.
I saw another post that you shared on social media about thinking about a book. You were writing some, notes down, and are you writing a book?
Yeah, I have been. It's just a little side thing that I've just been jotting down. I think because I've just been through so much in the last 2 years, it's been quite therapeutic to get it out of my head. A little quite emotional to revisit some of those really hard times. But I know so many people are going through this as well, and just if someone can read or hear a story that gives them inspiration and hope. I know I've hung on to hearing people go into radical remission, and just hearing other people's stories like that just gives so much hope.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
Well, we heard you reading a chapter. I was playing it aloud for Nick and I. We were in the car and our eyes were welling up in tears. I really think if it doesn't happen eventually, just keep working on that book, because I felt touched and changed just from hearing you reading that little snippet. I would love to read the book.
Oh, thank you.
I agree.
Thank you so much for talking to us today, Gina.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
We've just finished with Gina Urlich and we've said our goodbyes, and now, it's time to ponder and reflect.
Yeah, so Gina Urlich was a guest that you've been so excited to have on the guest. We both have, actually. But you and your friends more so because you follow Gina.
Yeah.
How was that for you?
Oh, she's incredible. I love anyone who puts their life's passion into their work. And, that must have been 3 years in nursing. Did you say 4 years?
So, yeah, it was, I can't remember what the nursing
3 or
element
4.
was, but the second degree was 4 years.
And then 4 years as a single mom at that point. And I think, that is such a commitment to the thing you're most passionate and interested in about. And I feel we're better off knowing, all the information now that she's studied so hard on. So we can better ourselves in our own, food knowledge. When
we don't listen to our bodies, then it's going to fall over. Our bodies are going to shake us to go, you can't keep doing this, and I'm going to make you stop by either you be playing sports and you might break a leg, or or you might just fall over health-wise. And I think, or your body will just show stuff like with inflammation or so on and so forth, or something might come up. And I just think that is, again, the reminder that we just need to listen to ourselves.
And the word surrender is often used in a very, very cliche and surrender, and we use it a lot in yoga, but it is such a powerful word in terms of, if she hadn't surrendered and gone, actually, I'm going to go to the doctor because something's not right. If she just said, no, I'm going to push through, I can't take time off now, I've got to keep going.
Your body just says,
so the surrender is the first step into getting better, or recovery. And I think that is a very, very brave thing to do.
I think and I know that this isn't the first time anyone has said this, but you got to kind of treat your body like an engine light coming on in your car. Like if you ignore it, it's not going to get better.
Yeah. But I took a lot from today. I took a lot from all her knowledge and also her experience. So I feel, changed from the conversation.
And and again, just permission to have a rest as well, which is the big thing that I was going to take away. But if you took away something a little bit different, I'd love to hear from you. We'll put our socials up there. Please get in touch. Thank you for watching Stand Up Again with Sophie and Nick Ratto and listening too. See you soon.